now, right 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 now.
Increasing over the last 50 years since the government. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your weekly daily morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the major crash that is taking place on Bitcoin right now. If you guys will recall, we have been discussing how there is a bear flag that has been forming on Bitcoin for the last couple of months. And we've also been discussing how it is extremely important that we leave our biases at the door. I know that you want Bitcoin to go up, but we have to trade the market that we have. And right now, Bitcoin is in the final stages of completing a bear flag and in what may be the first stages of dropping to the downside. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about just that. We're going to be talking about whether or not Bitcoin is going to continue moving to the downside, or whether or not Bitcoin is actually going to end up having a major crash. People are saying there's no sound. Is this true? Is this true? Or is this a joke? Seriously? Really? What? Why wouldn't there be any sound? Doesn't make any sense. Check, check. Can somebody tell me in chat whether that's true or not? Check, check. Check. Everybody here? Can you hear? Okay. Let's see. What are we doing here? That's so strange. Okay. We literally we've done over 1,500 episodes of Coffee and Crypto at this point. We have a very, very intricate standard operating procedure for when we send things live. There we go. Now we're good. All right. Let's take it from the top. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your weekday morning show where we bring you the latest and everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the major capitulation that is taking place on Bitcoin right now. We have been discussing for the last couple of weeks about how Bitcoin is building a very important downtrending, downtrend predicting chart formation here in the form of this bear flag. You can see that we have our uptrending level of resistance, our uptrending level of support, and this is a bear flag that points Bitcoin down there towards that $60,000 to $70,000 range. We've been discussing whether or not Bitcoin is actually going to go through with this correction, and so far that looks to be what Bitcoin is doing. As you guys know, I'm not any kind of perma bear on Bitcoin or anything like that. I'm actually a perma bull on Bitcoin when you give it enough time, but that doesn't mean that we cannot and sometimes should not be bears on the shorter term price action for Bitcoin. And what we have witnessed Bitcoin do over the last few days has been extremely indicative of a corrective movement. We have seen Bitcoin time and time again build out what we call an overside underside test on these different uptrending levels of support on Bitcoin that have now flipped to resistance. And likely as a result of the American buildup in the Persian Gulf and in the Red Sea, there has been a major crash across markets. It's not just Bitcoin that is going through a major drop. Gold has dropped substantially as well after rallying to a fresh all-time high of $5,600 per ounce. We saw a 9% drop on gold in 9 minutes. Gold acting like a penny stock is almost always going to be an indicator that something massive is happening in global markets. And so that is what we're going to be discussing today. On top of that, we also see a large crash going on silver. As you can see, silver has been in this rising wedge here for the better part of this week. And that rising wedge has broken to the downside over just the last 2 hours. So massive volatility coming in here. A 12% crash on Bitcoin, on silver in just 2 hours is a big deal. Let's also take a look here at a couple of the big stock indexes because you can see that they are dropping as well. SPY has dropped from 696 down to 685. The S&P 500, if you will, has dropped from about 7,000. And this is just continuing the pattern here of this rising wedge that we have seen here on the SPY. Is this going to aggressively break to the downside? Time will tell, but what we do know right now is that there is a very large flotilla of ships, including destroyers, cruisers, aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, and a fleet of several hundred military aircraft within 1,000 miles of Iran. There's a massive flotilla sitting just outside of Iranian waters, and there are plenty of reasons to believe that a land and air campaign may begin against Iran within just the next couple of days. 17 minutes ago, we can see that there is currently the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group sitting just outside of the Persian Gulf, just here on the other side of the Strait of Hormuz, which is likely mined at this point. This is a very major development because you don't move an aircraft carrier just to threaten someone. You generally move an aircraft carrier because you are preparing for a full-blown war with a certain nation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on today, but the main reason that we're here today is to discuss Bitcoin because Bitcoin is going through a major capitulation event, so that's what we are going to start with. As we start with Bitcoin, I like to go over 3 websites. If you're new here, this is kind of what we do. We like to go over CoinMarketCap, CoinGlass, and Farsight Investors to get an overall snapshot of what is going on in the Bitcoin markets. Bitcoin right now is trading at $84,377. It is down 5.17% in the last 7 days, but it is also down 5.48% in the last 24 hours. You can see on the market capitalization, the total market cap charts up here, and also on the CMC 20 that we are seeing major crashes across the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency markets. And this is the first place that I'm going to add some opinion here. I'm extremely happy about this. I really hope that Bitcoin drops down towards 60 to 70,000. I am not only a bear in the sense that I am overall predicting that Bitcoin is going to correct. If you'll remember, at 116,000, we predicted 94 to 100,000. The day that we hit 94,000, we did an overside, underside test of it, one of these patterns that we often talk about, and we said we're going lower from here. We're probably going down to 88 to 85. We dropped down to 80. I'm sorry, we said we would drop down towards about 75 to 80. We dropped down to 80. We then recovered back up to 98,000. We said that we would recover to 100, so we were pretty much spot on that. And we also said that unless Bitcoin is able to confidently break above 106,000, then the bear flag that we've been following will likely send Bitcoin down to $60,000 to $75,000 at some point in the year of 2026. This is not just based on my 8 years experience analyzing the Bitcoin chart. This is not just based on all of the technical analysis pointing in this direction. This is also based on a wealth of inside information that we have from different sponsors that we work with, different companies that we work with, multi-$100 billion names that you would know that are telling us where they believe the bottom is and where their buy orders are. And generally speaking, what the market is going to do is it is going to move in the direction of those buy orders, like a UFO coming and picking up the cow. You know, the market is going to get sucked in that direction. If that's where all the buy orders are, you're going to see the market get sucked in that direction. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that we would see Bitcoin drop down to $80,000 again at least once and possibly down to 75, maybe even a little bit lower. I do think that we're closer to the bottom of this bear market than the top. I don't think that Bitcoin will ever drop below $50,000 ever again, which means that we might look out below and see Bitcoin drop another $35,000 down towards 50, but even that's unlikely. I think somewhere above 60 is where you're going to see the bottom for this bear market at some point within the next 6 to 8 months. Bear markets typically last between 11 and 14 months. We are currently just a little bit over 3.5 months in. So the end of this bear market is likely to take place at some point late summer to early fall of 2026, with a bull market resuming later on in 2027. This has been the exact same setup that we've been talking about for the last 4 months on this channel. And I am happy about that because I want to acquire Bitcoin on the cheap. As someone saying in chat, GT Rocker said, hell yeah, cash bros, now is our time. If you are like me and you sit on cash at all times to be able to acquire the dip, then you're happy right now. If you followed our counsel, if you followed our channel, you knew that this could happen. You knew that Bitcoin might rally back up towards 100, but more likely than not, it was going to fail. We even had an inverse head and shoulders pattern here, and we said, you know, if we break through 100 to 106, we'll flip. But ever since this moment right here, when we did our overside underside test of 94, overside underside test, you can see right here, this very moment is when I said we're in a bear market, and I have said the exact same thing ever since then. And I have been building a cash buffer ever since that moment with which I can buy the dip on Bitcoin. And I am very excited because what I typically do even before we get into the analysis here, what I typically do is I keep about 6 to 12 months of cash on hand for investments. And I invest a certain amount every month, several $1,000s every month. And that drains that cash position. But I always make my investments run through a cash account so that if I see a great asset like gold or silver, which obviously right now isn't the time for that, but in this case, Bitcoin is on a fantastic discount, then what I'm able to do is I am able to accelerate my monthly DCA. I can take it from 5,000 to 10,000 or 10,000 to 20,000 a month or whatever. And if it's you might be able to take it from 500 to $1,000 a month, whatever it may be. But I keep a cash buffer in front of my investments so that I can accelerate my DCA if ever I am presented with an excellent investment opportunity. And right now, I'm just kind of DCAing Bitcoin at my standard rate. And if it starts dropping down towards $75,000 or $70,000, I'm going to double that DCA rate. I might even put a small lump sum into Bitcoin to lower my average cost basis and increase my returns when you see Bitcoin go back to the upside, right? So we're DCAing Bitcoin every month right now. And if we start dropping back down here towards $80,000, that is extreme value territory. I cannot emphasize enough just how important it is to be positioned to make entries down here between $70,000 and $80,000. If we drop below 70, between $60,000 and $70,000 is going to be some of the best Bitcoin investment opportunities that you will ever see for the rest of your lives. The past is the past. You can't go back, but the near future is something that you can prepare for. So make sure that you have disposable income and ideally even a pile of cash with which you can invest in Bitcoin. All right, so we're going to get into the technical analysis here in just a second, but I also want to look at CoinGlass here. If you guys don't know, CoinGlass has some extremely useful information on liquidations, so it helps us to understand why the market is moving the way that it does. I highly recommend CoinGlass.com, hashtag not sponsored, but I love their website. And what we can see here is that over the course of yesterday, we saw $650 million, we saw $650 million worth of longs getting liquidated, which is a part of the reason that we're seeing this correction here, right? It's part of the reason that we're seeing that drop take place. If you look at the last 7 days, you can see that over the 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock hour this morning, we saw $82 million worth of Bitcoin longs getting liquidated. This is a lot of that sell side pressure that is driving Bitcoin lower. Okay, now if we take a look here at our liquidation heat map V2, which is extremely important, you guys need to be paying attention to this, right? If we look at our liquidation heat map V2, let's just scroll over here to the present. Let's make sure we're in the right spot here. I think we are. Yep, okay. If we look here, what you're going to see is that a lot of long liquidations got, well, liquidated right here, right? And if we go on over to, let's look at Bybit. If you look at Bybit on the 24-hour, we liquidated quite a few $1 million worth of long liquidations, and there's still some more down here at 83. And if you zoom out to the last month or so, what you're going to find is that there are still more long liquidations. You can see all these long liquidations here at 89,000, here at 86,000. A lot of people are trying to long a bear market, and this is why you're losing money. I have not opened a single long position on Bitcoin in over 2 months. And the reason for that is because we are not in a bull market. We're in a bear market. We thought about entering one. There was one long position that we talked about entering, but our criteria didn't get met. We talked about an A, B, C, and trading the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and trading the 5 wave here, but it immediately fell below. So this was not something that we ended up going into, right? That's why trading the 5 wave can be relatively dangerous. And so what we are seeing right now is it is exactly what you would expect from Bitcoin being in a bear market. All right, let's take a look at the ETF flows. This is very important because the ETF flows show us where retail and even institution sentiment is. You can see over the last week or so, last week and a half, we have seen about $2 billion worth of outflows here on the Bitcoin ETFs. This is not something that's going to continue. I cannot stress this enough. This is not a trend that will continue forever. This is a short window, as I'm going to show you in just a moment. This is a short window to load up on Bitcoin on the cheap because you're not going to have these kind of opportunities forever. And it's very important that you take advantage of them. I want to tell you that I want Bitcoin to drop because I want to buy more. Because I firmly believe that Bitcoin is going to $1 million within the next 10 years. And if that is the case, if I can enter at $60,000, that's an 18x. To do an 18x in the stock market, you understand you'd have to wait probably at least 30 years. You're likely going to be able to achieve that in under 10 on Bitcoin if you have the brass to buy Bitcoin when it drops to the downside. I am extremely long-term confident in Bitcoin. Short-term, though, we could be seeing that correction. So, What are we looking at doing right now? We're looking at making investments in Bitcoin, which is actually part of the reason why today's show is brought to you in part by iTrust Capital. If you guys don't already know, I highly recommend that you sign up for iTrust Capital, and I'm going to give you one very simple reason why. If you come on over to our profile, I'm going to share with you some math that I did yesterday. I just bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin over on iTrust Capital for about $760, or about 24% under spot price. How did I do that? I bought Bitcoin for 24% under spot price. That's incredible. If you could do that, wouldn't you want to do that? Well, here's how. On iTrust Capital, I simply opened an SEP IRA. If you don't have a business like I do, then you can open a traditional IRA and do the exact same thing because of the tax deductions. All you got to do is buy Bitcoin in a tax-advantaged retirement account like an SEP IRA, which is what I use, or a traditional IRA from iTrust Capital. And by doing so, I can deduct that $1,000 investment from my taxes and avoid paying a minimum 24% in taxes on that $1,000 this year. That means by investing $1,000, I saved a minimum of $240 in taxes. If I then pay myself back the $240 instead of paying it to the IRS, then I actually got $1,000 worth of Bitcoin for $760. And you can do it too. It's really simple. All you have to do is go and sign up for iTrust Capital with the link in the description box down below, or by going to itrustcapital.com/go/crypto-jeb. It's a bit of a mouthful. Again, that's in the description box down below. And you are also going to be getting a $100 special funding bonus. So let's just say that you make about $100,000 to $105,000 a year. Your top marginal income is going to be taxed at a 24% tax rate. If you're a little bit below that, it's going to be 22% instead of 24%. You can invest $1,000, get $240 in tax savings. So your cost basis with the tax savings is actually $760. And if you factor in the $100 funding bonus, which you can then deduct from what you invested, by simply doing what I just did with iTrust Capital, you can get $1,000 worth of Bitcoin for $660 after you factor in the $100 funding bonus, which can count against the investment, and the $240 in tax savings that you'll be able to reap when the year ends. That's incredible. How incredible is that? What would you do if you could get Bitcoin 34% off spot price? What would you do? I mean, seriously, I did the math yesterday. Wait around and buy Bitcoin at $66,000. Maybe if we go there, or buy it at $66,000 per coin right now, factoring in the 24% tax savings. $88,000, which is what the price was yesterday when I posted this, times 0.786, our multiplication factor, equals $66,800 a coin when you factor in the tax savings. Money that you don't pay in taxes is money that you get to keep in your pocket. This is how you do math. This is why it's so valuable to invest in retirement accounts, and it is exactly why you should sign up for iTrust Capital with the link in the description box down below. Let's jump back on into it and let's do some short-term technical analysis on Bitcoin. Really appreciate all of you guys being here. Okay, let's start with our long-term analysis. We must first start with our long-term analysis, and this is where our tried and true, our trusty smiley face of doom pattern comes in. If you guys are not familiar with the smiley face of doom pattern, we have built the exact same pattern over the last year or so on Bitcoin that we did at the top of the last bull market. We had two highs. The second high was higher than the first, just a little bit. And then we have this uptrend right here, right there. This little bottom right here where we rallied into it. So it looks like a smiley face, right? That's where the smiley face of doom comes in. You put that little nose in there and it's nice and cute, isn't it? Well, it's a smiley face of doom, right? Because what happened after the smiley face of doom pattern was formed, I need to get a trademark on that, smiley face of doom pattern. After that pattern completed, Bitcoin would then rally up to the 50 simple moving average and the 50 exponential moving average, but we'll just use the simple moving average to keep it simple. I'm sorry, I had to. We will just go ahead and see that Bitcoin rallied up here to the 50 simple moving average, and then it went through this major correction. And what Bitcoin essentially did is it built a bear market, and the whole bear market was more or less just one massive bear flag that was pointing right at the 200 weekly moving average. Now, there's a couple of differences between this market and our market, which is why I do not believe that Bitcoin is going to drop 77 to 78% in our current market. Number one, during this major capitulation, you saw Luna collapse. 50-some billion dollars worth of wealth vanished in a heartbeat. I don't know of any other projects in the cryptocurrency space that are that large and are that vulnerable right now, but of course, black swans can happen, and it's a good reason why you should make sure that if you are leveraged, your liquidation levels are extremely low or non-existent by not leveraging your position, and you should make sure that you maintain cash, one, to shore up those leverage positions if you have them, and two, to acquire the dip if you do see Bitcoin drop dramatically. if not for Luna, and also not for Three Arrows Capital, if not for Celsius, and over here, if not for FTX, Bitcoin probably would have ended this bear market right here on the 200 weekly moving average, which is what Bitcoin has done time and time again, just like every single other major investable asset in history. If you look at Google, if you look at Alphabet, if you look at SPY, if you look at QQQ, all of these assets, all of these indexes, all these funds, they typically see major bounces right here on that 200 moving average. On my chart, it's this gray line. You can see Berkshire Hathaway, one of the original employees of Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie Munger once said, if you just did nothing but buy the 200 weekly moving average on good companies, you would have beat the S&P 500 handsomely. And so what we saw happen here was the exact same thing. Bitcoin, just like all of its stock friends, dropped back down to the 200 weekly moving average. And again, because of all those bankruptcies, it broke below it. But if not for those bankruptcies, we probably would have bottomed on the 200 here, and we would have likely seen about a 67% bear market. If it weren't for those capitulations in the market, then we probably wouldn't have seen Bitcoin drop farther than that. And on top of that, we also saw at that time very high interest rates. I'm sorry, not high interest rates. We saw the interest rates were increasing, right? We saw quantitative tightening was beginning. We saw rampant inflation, and we were also seeing a major crash in the stock market. If you look at the SPY over here, you can see the SPY was going through a major bear market as well. All of those compounding and contributing factors helped Bitcoin to go through a much deeper bear market than what we have right now. Right now, we do not have quantitative tightening. We don't have much quantitative easing, but we don't have quantitative tightening, and quantitative tightening is extremely unlikely at this point. So that will not provide downforce on Bitcoin. On top of that, I don't think you're going to see a Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, Luna, and FTX all happen within 3 to 4 months like we did last time. Again, we know a lot of the companies in the space. We know some that are a little bit shaky, but we know that the vast majority of them are actually extremely strong. I genuinely, having an insider view into the industry, believe that the industry has done a very good job of shoring up its positions in a way that was not done during the last bear market. So I don't suspect that the same thing's going to happen. All of that to say that if we didn't see the same kind of factors that we saw in 2022, which we don't see right now, then we would have likely seen Bitcoin probably bottom out around the 200 weekly moving average, trade sideways, and then maybe go into the bull market a little bit earlier. And that's exactly what I think we're going to see happen right now. In the absence of all those factors, which we have not seen, I think that what you're going to see happen is that Bitcoin is probably going to follow through on the exact same pattern that we saw back in 2022, which was, of course, that smiley face of doom pattern that pointed us at the 200 moving average. The 200 moving average is our current target here on this channel. And I know that that's unpopular. And frankly, I don't care, because my job is not to be popular, which sounds a little bit weird as an influencer, but my job as a Christian is to be a man of integrity. And what all of the analysis is telling me is that until proven otherwise, we should anticipate a reversion back down to the 200 weekly moving average. Would we love a bull market to take place? Sure. It's been often said that if Bitcoin goes up, you get more freedom. If Bitcoin goes down, you get more Bitcoin, so that you can get even more freedom later. You get more freedom either way when you hold Bitcoin. But the key is not to get childish and emotional and say, oh my gosh, Bitcoin can't drop. No, Bitcoin can drop, and you need to be ready for it. And to be a grown-up, and you need to be mature enough to have cash on hand to invest in Bitcoin if you truly believe in it at these levels. If Bitcoin drops down towards $60,000, I will buy coins, not one coin, coins, plural. I will buy multiple coins of Bitcoin because I firmly believe in this asset. But I also firmly believe that it is not a smart idea to say that we're in a bull market when we simply are not. When you see Bitcoin drop below the 50 moving average every single time in history, that has signaled a bear market. Okay? Every time. These three circles are the 3 times in history that Bitcoin has seen a drop below the 50 weekly moving average. In this case, it took us 150 days to find the bottom. In this case, it took us 200 days to find the bottom. In this case, it took us 336 days to find the bottom. If we took the mean of that and said about 240 days, we could see Bitcoin bottoming out sometime in July, maybe at the latest like October of this year, and our price target, once again, as always, is going to be that beautiful, lovely 200 weekly moving average. Because as Charlie Munger said, I know a lot of you guys don't like Munger and Buffett, but you can't deny that they built a $1 trillion company. Have you done that? No. So maybe they know what they're talking about. Don't listen to broke people. You understand what I mean? The rich people talk about how important it is to buy the 200 weekly moving average. And so if we see Bitcoin drop back down to the 200 weekly moving average, our job as investors and as providers for our family, as people that are trying to build wealth for those around us, as people that care about the people around us and we want them to succeed, our job is to prepare for these kind of events. I would love the 50 moving average to drop back down here towards $72 to $70,000. Because then here's what happens. You drop back down here, you break above the 50 moving average, and then that point is where you call the beginning of the bull market. You can basically time the beginning of the bear market. It's delayed. It's not the very beginning of the bear market, but you can basically confirm that a bear market has started with the 50 moving average. But on the flip side, you can also basically confirm that a bull market has started anytime you break above the 50 moving average, as you can see here. It really is that simple. It doesn't need to be much more complicated than that. It's about the same deal. So, as Bitcoin continues to drop here, that 50 moving average is going to start to fall over. And when we eventually, because we will, don't lose your conviction, don't lose your confidence. I've watched Bitcoin drop from $20,000 down to $3,000. I've also watched Bitcoin drop from $69,000 down to $15,000. I've also watched Bitcoin drop from $10,000 down to $3,000 in the span of less than 2 months. I've watched these kind of things take place. My conviction on Bitcoin is not shaken. It is not wavered. It is absolutely as strong as ever, and I'm very excited to acquire low. But what we must not do, and my biggest encouragement for you is what we must not do, is we must not read our emotions into the chart. It is extraordinarily important that we trade the market that we have. It is extraordinarily important that we do not throw out logic, because emotionally, we want Bitcoin to go up in 2026. 2026 is likely to be a bear year. Could it be bullish? Of course it could be bullish. Of course we could be wrong. And we have our levels where we say we're wrong. If we see Bitcoin breaking above that 50 with confidence, get a backtest on it and bounce, we're wrong and Bitcoin's going up. At that point, that's an excellent buy signal. If you see Bitcoin breaking above about 106,000, not 100, but about 106,000, and getting a strong backtest of 6 figures as support, that's where we'd be wrong. But right now, the thesis that Bitcoin is in a bear market is firm, and we need to trade that. So once again, as we move into our next topic for this stream, it is important for you to remember, as an investor who, with all due respect, you've probably been in Bitcoin for less time than I have. I've been here for 8.5 years. I've been doing daily technical analysis on Bitcoin daily. Let me just emphasize that almost every single day for over half of its existence. I know the Bitcoin chart like the back of my hand. I'm a world-leading expert in what this chart does. And I'm here to tell you that if you read into it what you want it to do, you have a bias. You need to read what it says. And what it says is that we're in a bear market and we should be expecting lower lows. I'm not saying you should short Bitcoin. The time to do that was a couple months ago. What I am saying is that you should have cash on hand to buy the dip. You can dollar cost average. These levels are fantastic. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million, which I'm very confident that it will at some point in the next 10 to 12 years, somewhere in there, if Bitcoin goes to $1 million, that is a 1,000 to a 1,200% return. It's a fantastic return. I said 18x earlier. If you go from $60,000 up to $1 million, that is not 18, it's about 17x return, excuse me. So you're looking at about a 10 to 15x return, in my opinion, within the next 10 to 15 years on Bitcoin. Jeb, that's ridiculous. Really? Because from 2019 until the top in 2025, Bitcoin rallied 37x. And that was not in 12 years, that was in 6 years. Oh, but Jeb, diminishing returns. Yes, but gold yesterday added the entire market capitalization of Bitcoin in 24 hours. Diminishing returns are real, but they are not as big of a deal as you think they are because of the ongoing debasement of fiat currencies and the ongoing expansion of the global economy. When you look at the S&P 500, for example, when you look at it right here, you look at it just like this. Oh my gosh, Jeb, it's going parabolic. How can it sustain that forever? Well, go back 10 years. Oh my gosh, Jeb, the S&P 500 is going parabolic. How can we sustain that forever? Okay, go back in time. Go back in time. Oh my gosh, Jeb, we're in the 90s. The S&P 500 is going parabolic. How can it sustain that forever? Here's how I can sustain a parabolic growth curve forever. 1, the debasement of fiat currencies in which these assets are denominated. 2, ongoing advancements in technology that expand the capacity of humankind to generate economic freedom and wealth. That's why markets, if you look into the past, they always look parabolic. They almost always do. If it's a good market, right? Bitcoin looks parabolic right here. Looks almost parabolic. We're on the logarithmic chart. Looks almost parabolic, right? Well, it also did in 2017. And it also did in 2014. And it also did in 2013. And it also did in 2011. Just adjust your scale. Bitcoin can easily go to $1 million. Easily. And it will happen in my lifetime. So long as I live past 35 or 40, you will see it. I'm extremely confident in that. So lower lows are a blessing if you are doing your job. Okay? Don't go blaming the market because you don't know how to make money in it. Don't blame the game, man. Blame the player. Bitcoin goes through bear markets every 4 years. There was a possibility of a super cycle this time. The day that we broke below 94, we said, nope, super cycle's not happening. Bitcoin is in a bear market now. We are likely looking at $60,000 to $75,000 as a 2026 price target. 2027 will likely be the year where we start moving back to the upside. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about fundamentals, because there is a reason, in my opinion, that we are seeing this correction going on, and that is because of the flotilla that Donald Trump has sent over towards Iran. So there are 8 destroyers and an aircraft carrier in the Middle East, bringing 756 launch sails ready for strike and air defense. Fighter jets in the region have, if I have numbers correctly, have surpassed over 300. Just the USS Abraham Lincoln alone has a fighter package of approximately 90 aircraft. You also have a great number of bases in Jordan. You have bases in Israel. You have bases in Qatar. You have bases all over the place over here. And there are a couple of other aircraft carriers that are likely moving into strike position. There is a lot of hype about when and if an attack will take place against Iran. You probably saw Donald Trump's Truth Social post over the last few days about how Iran has to come to the table and sign a nuclear deal. We've been looking at this whole hubbub about a nuclear deal with Iran since Barack Obama was president. I personally don't think that's going to take place. If it does, honestly, it's a way to save face from Trump because he doesn't want to attack Iran. At the end of the day, whether or not an attack takes place is yet to be determined. Whether or not it should take place is up for debate. But whether or not it is impacting markets is absolutely, unequivocally factual. This development is most likely the cause behind the drop that we've seen in gold. It's most likely the cause behind the drop that we've seen in silver, which obviously silver was going to have a correction eventually. And it's obviously also a part of the reason why we are seeing a drop in the S&P 500. So that's about as much as I'm going to go into it, because ultimately it's just kind of a headline. We don't need to get into the geopolitics of it as much as I enjoy geopolitics and military. But what I will say is this. If you do see a strike on Iran, it will likely crater markets, at least short term. And after the world figures out what's going to happen, how's China going to respond? How's Russia going to respond? How is Iran going to respond? Is there going to be an all-out, just insane war in the Middle East? What is it going to do to global crude oil prices, considering about a quarter of global crude, about 15% of natural gas flows through the Strait of Hormuz, which is this little body of water right here, right? This little tiny choke point right there. It's called the Strait of Hormuz. It connects the Persian Gulf, which is this body of water, to the Indian Ocean, which is obviously one of the multiple oceans of the world. If we see a war take place, you're likely going to see Kuwait, Iraq, and much of Saudi Arabia, as well as obviously Iran's oil exports, grind to a halt. How will that impact the global economy? That's yet to be determined. But the threat of a war in Iran is most likely what is driving the capitulation across markets right now. It's also interesting to note, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more here in just a moment, it's also interesting to note that as gold drops, Bitcoin is dropping too. You are not seeing this immediate rotation out of gold into Bitcoin. And part of the reason for that, in my opinion, is that the fundamentals of the gold rally are not necessarily saying that the gold rally is over. It's just simply saying that there is bearishness across the entire market. For the gold market to rotate into Bitcoin, it would likely take quite some time for that to take place. In the short term, in the first volleys, if you will, of a gold bear market, it would probably actually be catastrophic for Bitcoin, because naturally, if people are selling gold, then that means that they are extremely fearful of what's going on in the global economy, which is interesting because that's kind of the opposite of the narrative of why you buy gold. People say you buy gold because of fear in the global economy. The problem with gold, let me just throw a little bit of ideology in here. The problem with gold is that anytime you actually need it, the government comes and confiscates it. So, have fun with that, however you will. But the bottom line is this: gold is a hedge against inflation. It is not a very good hedge against genuine hyperinflation and the oncoming effects of totalitarian regimes. You've seen gold confiscated at gunpoint hundreds of times throughout history. At sword point hundreds of times throughout history even. I mean, this goes back to before the invention of gunpowder. But what you do see gold do is it typically rallies in the light of rapid inflation. Not necessarily hyperinflation. In that case, it's rallying because the underlying currency is being debased So it respectively is rallying because it's still holding its value, whereas the currency is not. Right now, what we're seeing happen is that gold is rallying partially because people do not trust the dollar to store its value. Not necessarily they think that the dollar is going to collapse in the next year, but that it's not going to store its value. And so because that is the root cause of gold's rally, when you see macroeconomic instability, people like to flight to cash, and that's what they're doing right now. So anyway, let's go ahead and read some chat, and then we're going to keep it moving here. That was our story on the Iranian flotilla. We're a little bit behind, so we're going to have to catch up. Hey, guys, real quick, I also want to let you know about NordVPN. If you guys have not already signed up for NordVPN, you are missing out, and there's a very important reason why you should sign up for NordVPN, and that is because NordVPN is going to keep you safe while you're browsing online. The last thing you want is a hacker or a thief sending an aircraft carrier to steal your Bitcoin. But that's what they're trying to do, man, not an actual aircraft carrier. They are sitting out there in the Indian Ocean, ready for you to make a mistake so that they can come and steal your Bitcoin. Why are hackers and thieves trying to steal your Bitcoin? Because contrary to what Peter Schiff will tell you, Bitcoin has a lot of value. And if you are storing it on your computer, if you have seed phrases, if you have logins to your Coinbase, logins to your bank account, if you have ever typed your email, password, social security numbers, home address, cell phone number, all of that into the computer one time, hackers and thieves can see that. Anytime you do that, anytime you type it in, you're not even thinking about it, you say allow cookies, etc. Hackers and thieves can see your internet traffic, and they can use that internet traffic to get information about you where they can dox you, they can steal from you. Something that genuinely does happen is that people will find people that have a lot of Bitcoin because they got their search traffic, they see their wallet accounts and everything, and they'll raid their home and steal it, or they'll hold them at gunpoint, hold them hostage and say, give me your Bitcoin. This has happened. This has happened dozens of times, hundreds of times over the last several years. It is extremely important that you stay safe while you're browsing online. I mean, we talk about this, you have to stay safe. It's important to have safety. And so NordVPN is the best place to help you with that. NordVPN is going to keep you safe while browsing online by keeping you invisible. So if you sign up for NordVPN, I want you to come over here and get the Plus plan for $93, which works out to $3.33 a month. That is basically nothing. That's 1 cup of coffee every 2 months. You are going to get access to NordVPN for 24 months with 4 months free. You're going to get the VPN, which will keep you safe while you're browsing online from those pirates, thieves, and scammers that are trying to hack and steal from you and possibly even hurt you. You're going to get the anti-malware and browsing protection package, which is very, very important and does not come with the basic plan. You're also going to get the ad and tracker blocker, and you're also going to get the password manager so you can stay organized with all your passwords. If you have not already, I highly encourage you to sign up for NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/Jeb. Let's read some chat, and then we're going to talk about the meteoric rally on gold and silver, its impact on Bitcoin, and whether or not we're going to see a major rotation out of gold and silver into Bitcoin. Let's do it. 8 destroyers is bullish. Theoretically, hey, look at that. That's hilarious. Did anybody notice that? One of my daughter's pacifiers is sitting right here on the table. just set that right there. Right over. There you go. Most people have a drink. I've got my drink right here too. This is the vibe we're going for. America, caffeine, and babies. Like that is the dad life right there. That's the way to do it. Love being a dad. I have 4 kids. Very happy about it. I've been in Bitcoin longer than you. Love to hear it. Let's see what you got to say. They've been crying Bitcoin to a million since its inception. Keep waiting and maybe dad will show up with a PlayStation. He's not coming back. He's dead. Really? Really? Because Bitcoin has done a lot since before I was here. Because I'll just show you the long-term chart of Bitcoin. I'll show you the longest running chart of Bitcoin in its history. And we'll see whether or not daddy ever came back with the milk or not. So let's just try and spot when I got into Bitcoin. So I'm gonna just put it on the chart right here, and we'll see if we can even see it from outer space. And we'll see whether or not that claim is true. I got into Bitcoin on the 31st of July, 2017. It was right there. Bitcoin was about to breach $3,000 as an all-time high the day I found it. Can you even see the dot? Here, I'll make it bigger. I'll make it bigger. Jeb, the dot's too small. I'll make it bigger. Make it bigger. Make the dot like that. This is the entire history of Bitcoin. If you've been here longer than me, then you've witnessed a 68x on Bitcoin. If you've been here longer than me, then what you will remember is back in 2017, everybody saying it is impossible for Bitcoin to go to $10,000. And just a few months later, Bitcoin went to $20,000. If you've been here longer than me, then that means that you too have been here since when Bitcoin looks flat if you look at the long-term history. You were here for the first 2,500 days, somewhere in there. And ever since then, another 3,000 days have passed. So is Bitcoin going to 1 million? Absolutely. I 100% agree with Michael Saylor. I've met Michael Saylor. I've interviewed the guy. I know the guy. Bitcoin is either going to 1 million or it's going to 0. There is no in between. But I'm going to tell you what I think, because that's why you came here. I don't think a chart that looks like this is going to 0 anytime soon. This is not just a couple of years of tulip mania, guys. This is some Hulkamania? This is some Bitcoin mania. Bitcoin has been rallying for 16 years straight. So, here's what I'm going to say to that. Have you been here longer than me? If you think that Bitcoin going to $1 million is hokum, and you've watched what I've watched, then either you don't understand markets or you're lying about being here longer than me. That's what I'm going to say. I love you very much, but I'm going to call some nonsense on that. Grand Duel, I love you. All respect to you. But I really do not understand where you could possibly be getting that idea from. Really don't. But hey, look, Grand Duel, if you're freaked out, I get it. We all get freaked out. We all get scared during the bear market. It's a natural reaction. But I'm here to tell you 100% confidently, seriously, like genuinely, I have put myself in a position where I am not scared of a Bitcoin bear market. I'm not. I'm genuinely not afraid of it. I used to be afraid of Bitcoin bear markets. I was terrified of this bear market. And I was terrified of this bear market, to be quite honest with you. I'm not scared of this bear market. This is my third bear market. I've done this 3 times now. I've been doing this for almost a decade. I'm not scared of this bear market. And the reason I'm not scared of this bear market is because finally I put myself in a position where if Bitcoin drops 50%, it does not impact my quality of life. It just doesn't. It's not a freaky thing to me. It's not scary. I'm just not scared about it. So do with that what you will. Amazon went up 27,000%, but it also isn't going to 1 million. Parabolic growth, Amazon, Tesla, Google, it gets harder. It absolutely gets harder. It absolutely does get harder. But you also have to understand that Amazon, let's look at Amazon. Is Amazon going to 1 million? Amazon's share price is 283. Like, for Amazon to go to 1 million, let's analyze that claim, right? For Amazon to go to $1 million per share price, first of all, probably would never happen because of stock splits. But we're basically on the starting line right now if Amazon was to go to 1 million. For Amazon to go to 1 million, that would be a 237,000% return. That would mean that Amazon is worth more than like 1,000 Earths. That doesn't make any sense. Amazon is an extremely mature company. Bitcoin's starting at 84,000. We've got to work in parabolic growth. You guys have to understand parabolic growth. And it's not a natural thing to understand. But $1 million Bitcoin is only a 970% movement. To say that Amazon can't go through a 970% movement is nonsense. It wasn't that long ago that Amazon went through a 300% movement. Sorry, 3,000% movement. In just the last, let's see, how long has it been since Amazon went through a 900% movement? 10 years. In 10 years, Amazon went through a 900% movement. I'm saying Bitcoin's going to go through a 900% movement in the next 15 years. And Bitcoin is obviously significantly, Amazon is obviously significantly larger and more well-developed than Bitcoin is. Bartizan's in chat. Good to see you. Once MicroStrategy starts to liquidate, we are going to see a cascade down, new opportunities enter again. That's if MicroStrategy liquidates. I don't think they're going to. I really don't, guys. Strategy has cash reserves. Here, let me tell you what we do. I maintain like 12-month cash reserves minimum right now because we're in bear market. I'm maintaining a huge amount of cash reserves. I'm not going to sit here and stress about a bear market. I'm just going to check my watch and say, in about a year, we'll be better. I'm just going to sit in cash. If I get a good entry, I'll deploy some of that cash. I like the entries I have right now. If I get more entries, great. I'll take them. But I'm just going to check my watch and be like, in about 16 months, Bitcoin will be over 100,000 again, and it'll be on its way towards 200,000. So I'm just going to sit on my hands and wait. And that's what Strategy's doing. Strategy's sitting on like 2 years of cash to pay out all the dividends from Stretch and Strike and all these different preferred stocks. They're just going to, if we go into a bear market, they're just going to get to 1 million Bitcoin. That's what they're going to do. They're continuing to raise enormous amounts of cash. They're going to hit 1 million Bitcoin. Honestly, I hope that Saylor stops if he hits 1 million Bitcoin. I hope he's like, we got 1 million Bitcoin, that's enough. If we take over too much of the Bitcoin supply, we're going to become the Bitcoin guy, right? The chicken guy. Have you ever heard about the egg guy, right? Buys up all the eggs and then wants to turn around and sell them, and the broker says, who are you going to sell them to? You're the egg guy. I'm kind of hoping that doesn't happen with Strategy. If they hit 1 million Bitcoin, I hope they just stop. But they probably won't. Why would they? Why would they? No reason for them to. They might do it. All right. Hey, Jeb, you never addressed my comment about how you are completely wrong that people are expecting a pause yesterday, and that's why Bitcoin tanked. FedWatch Tool had it baked in. You're right, Pew Pew Poom, too. I was not looking at that. The reason I was not looking at that was because my wife was at a neurology appointment because we were concerned about her having multiple sclerosis. So I was a little bit out of the market when I got on stream yesterday. So you're right. That's true. No, the FedWatch Tool had baked in a pause, and I apologize for that incorrect comment there. Apologies about that. Luckily, we think she doesn't have it. There's a test that we found yesterday. We also had to go to the ER last night. That's part of the reason we were late today. We had to go to the emergency room last night. There's a test that was done that says that she doesn't have multiple sclerosis. So that's good. We still don't know what's going on with her health, but at least it's not MS. So that's information anyway. All right, guys, real quick, I do just want to remind you, because we got to wrap it out here. I do want to remind you to check out the special deal over on iTrust Capital. When you invest in a traditional IRA, you can deduct the amount of money that you invest in the IRA from your taxes, which means if you invest $1,000, you don't have to pay taxes this year on $1,000. And in retirement, you just pay your regular tax, right? SEP IRA, if you have a company like I do, you can contribute a lot more to your SEP IRA than you could to a traditional IRA. But this is investment where you can put money into the market and you deduct it from your taxes, which means you would pay less money in taxes. I see absolutely no reason, if you plan on holding Bitcoin for a very long time, why you wouldn't put some investment into Bitcoin through iTrust Capital and save 24% on your taxes, or even higher. If you're up making, in the 30% tax bracket, you're saving 30% on your taxes when you max this out. It's extremely important that you do that. And it's also extremely important that you sign up for NordVPN with the link in the description box down below, because today's stream is brought to, today's stream is brought to you by NordVPN. And the reason you should sign up is so that you can stay safe while you are browsing online. It's very, very important that you always lead with stability, with sovereignty, with safety, because you can build $1 million net worth and you can lose all of it. Guys, I have made millions of dollars in my career. And if I had have been as wise with that money back then, 3, 5, 6, 7 years ago, as I am now, I'd have $50 or $100 million. I don't have $50 or $100 million. I got a lot of money, but I don't have that much. I would have had way more if I had managed it well. But I made mistake after mistake after mistake. The reason we bring you these accounts is because I wish I had been maxing out retirement accounts. I started about 3 years ago. I should have been doing it 7 years ago, right? A lot of tax savings I could have had. It's very important that you stay safe. I was hacked for a small amount of cryptocurrency one time. And if I had been using NordVPN, it probably wouldn't have happened. That's why we bring you guys these sponsors. So make sure you sign up for NordVPN with a link in the description box down below, and sign up for iTrust Capital by going to itrustcapital.com/go/crypto-jeb. And that both of those links are in the description box down below. All right, guys, we're out of time. I got to wrap it out. I love all of you. I really appreciate all of you for being here. And if you did enjoy today's stream, please make sure to hit that like button on the way out the door. Subscribe to the channel for more content, and also stay tuned because we've got a lot of great content coming up. Follow us on Twitter at CryptoJeb and at Jeb McAfee. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.